welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this jam-packed Wednesday show. Bryson's Best 10 coming out 45 to 50 minutes. My top 10 teams in the National Football League. Couple new teams in the top 10, one of which, by the way, has never been on the list at any point in time, ever, in the history of Bryson's Best 10. Be excited to tell you that in about 45 minutes from now. Excited for that. Also, we're going to lead the show. We normally don't do this. We're going to lead the show with carving up the context, as once again, the Wi-Fi appears to be giving us some issues to a certain degree. If we have to jump out before the first segment because of the connection problems, we will do so gladly. But at the end of the day, we're going to continue to press on. The Kansas City Chiefs, 5-0, and I was watching that game against the Saints. Look out, NFL. It's gotten really scary for you. Get into that in about 15 minutes. Also, quick prediction on the WNBA Finals. Minnesota Lynx, New York Liberty toward the end of the show. And at the very end of the show, big NFC West clash tomorrow night between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Both teams in need of a really big win. Right now, this looks like it'll be the game that will, for the moment at least, decide supremacy in that division in the NFC West coming out of week 6. So very excited to get into all of those things. But first, we got some breaking news yesterday. Robert Saleh fired by the New York Jets after a pretty mediocre bad almost 3.5 years as the head coach of the New York Jets. We could show you what he did in terms of his resume. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsar Jr., who, by the way, is a Jets fan. So thanks for making this graphic, Alfred. This is what Robert Saleh has done. 20-36 overall record, 5-14 against divisional teams, 7-19 against playoff teams. The Jets were 7th in defense, and Saleh's defensive guy, but 31st, second to last in the NFL offensively. So simply put, the Jets could stop you. They simply could not score points or really gain that many yards to begin with as a football team during his tenure. So in a vacuum, this was a smart move to make because Robert Saleh, coaches with Saleh's resume do not last more than 3 years. Heck, most of them don't even last 2 years in the National Football League. You talk about the fact that this is a guy, listen, we understand he took over a dysfunctional franchise. All the missed quarterbacks that the Jets have had in their history, haven't made the playoffs since the 2010 season. We get all that. But did you elevate them to a different level? No, you didn't. So in a vacuum, it was the right move. For it to happen after week 5, I think it was the wrong move. And the reason I say that is this. There is no historical precedent for firing a coach at this point in the season and it working at all. Obviously, forget Super Bowl. And the Jets, they have Super Bowl aspirations. Those are delusional in my mind, but that's what they have. Forget Super Bowl. 26 of the last 27 teams who have fired a head coach after week 5, this exact point in the season, 26 of those 27 teams missed the playoffs. So it didn't make a difference. The only exception is the Raiders a few years ago, and Gruden technically was fired. He actually resigned as the head coach of the Raiders because of some situations related to some inappropriate emails, all those different things. So it wasn't necessarily for a lack of good performance by him and by the Las Vegas Raiders. It was just some inappropriate behavior. That was not the case with Robert Saleh, and he was fired yesterday. Here's what I want to talk about, though. And this is why we're going to lead the show with my midweek segment, Carving Up the Context. As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." Mid-segment on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context to lead a Wednesday show. Normally it's the middle of the Wednesday show. Today it's to lead the show. It is because of this. Aaron Rodgers, as he does every week, goes on the Pat McAfee show. Normally it's on Tuesdays. It happened to be actually today, I think yesterday because of the Saleh news. Didn't want to go on. It would have looked really bad. Although Aaron didn't exactly cover himself in glory with this recent appearance. Take a listen to what Aaron Rodgers said in relation to folks that are suggesting, hey, maybe he had something to do with Robert Saleh's ousting. Aaron Rodgers, this is what he said this afternoon on the McAfee show.
As far as any of the ridiculous allegations out there, I'm not going to spend more than one sentence in response to it, and that is that I resent any of those accusations because they're patently false. And it's interesting the amount of power that people think that I have. which I don't. But I love Robert, and it was, one of those days yesterday.
He says he doesn't have, he said, it's amazing how much control people think that I have, which I don't. I'm sure it's complete coincidence that Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb and Nathaniel Hackett and Tim Boyle, I'm sure it's totally, of course they weren't, they were going to the Jets anyway, regardless if Aaron Rodgers was going to be there, despite the fact that Cobb at that point last year was at his prime. Lazard is fine, nothing special. Tim Boyle literally should not even be in the NFL. Check his college numbers, that'll tell you that. And Nathaniel Hackett is in no other uncertain terms the worst offensive coordinator in professional football. But I'm sure it had nothing to do with Aaron joining the Jets. Nothing to do with it. Doesn't have as much power as some people might suggest. Let me pose this idea, because I'm not going to come out here in the show and just full-blown, make a blanket statement. I know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers was the sole responsible reason that Robert Saleh lost his job. Not going to say that because there's a number of factors that come into that. Number one, first and foremost, Saleh wasn't that good a coach. That we know. The story is why he was fired now, after week 5, and not toward the end of the season or after the season was over, as what tends to be the case. Jonathan Jones, shout out to him at CBS. He came out with a report yesterday. I'm shocked, utterly shocked at how much this has flown under the radar, but he reported this, and I quote, ousted Jets head coach Robert Saleh was considering firing offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett before he himself was fired Tuesday morning, end quote. This is from one source. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but this is out there from a professional, credible journalist. Nathaniel Hackett was going to lose his job. He should have never had the job to begin with, but that was going to be the case. And just total coincidence, Saleh was fired that morning. Also, what I think is not a matter of coincidence is that according to reporters, Woody Johnson himself, Aaron Rodgers, Woody Johnson, owner of the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers had a phone conversation Monday night. So they played the game Sunday morning, or at least Sunday morning Eastern time, across the pond in London, fly back to New York. I'm sure they probably had the day off on Monday as well as on Tuesday, get back in the building on Wednesday. The owner, the quarterback, have a phone conversation Monday night. Woody Johnson confirmed it. Aaron Rodgers confirmed it. Media's confirmed it. So I'm supposed to believe that Aaron Rodgers, or that Woody Johnson, rather, just so happened to check on Aaron Rodgers on a random Monday night after a 2-3 start. Just doesn't. By the way, Aaron said in the McAfee show, he doesn't call me all that often, but he calls from time to time. He called me after I tore my Achilles, which seemed like the nice thing to do. Your quarterback just had a season coming in heartbreaking fashion. You're going to call him. He doesn't call. This isn't like a week. I'll tell you this. Woody Johnson, Aaron Rodgers, I would bet every dollar I got that they don't talk as often as Rodgers and McAfee talk, or as much as Rodgers and Hackett or other guys talk, because the owner and the players in the Dallas, that's a little bit different, don't have that tight of a relationship. It's two different ways of going about their business. We understand that. He just so happens to call Aaron Rodgers, and the next morning, Robert Saleh is fired. Total coincidence. It has nothing to do with anything. If nothing else, because I'm not suggesting, I want to be very clear when I say this. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers explicitly and specifically told Woody Johnson in that phone call, I want Saleh out of the building. I want to be abundantly clear. I'm not making that claim whatsoever. What I am saying is this. This wasn't just some Woody Johnson woke up Tuesday morning and, guess I'm going to fire my head coach today. No, he's been thinking about this. The reports have been circulating. They've been a dark cloud over the franchise really since that Broncos loss. After they lost that game to Denver when they were almost double-digit favorites in over a touchdown, and in the big game in London against the Minnesota Vikings, they need to win this game for Saleh to keep his job. Though there were reports out there that suggested that. So clearly this was on Woody Johnson's mind. This was, he was thinking about this. And 12 hours before the head coach does indeed get fired, he talks to the quarterback, and there's no mention of Saleh. None. Total coincidence. Doesn't call Aaron much. And then Saleh's fired the next day. What I'm suggesting is that at the very least, Woody Johnson, who's let Aaron call the shots from day one in that organization, to the point where he can literally skip mandatory minicamp, which no other quarterback in the league, save for Trevor Lawrence, which the Jaguars let him do, and other players do, other veteran players do, skips mandatory minicamp to go to Egypt. That Woody didn't at least suggest. Thinking about canning Robert Saleh. Thoughts? What do you think about that, Aaron? And Aaron Rodgers, being the really, slick individual that he is, says he has absolutely nothing to do with that. How could anybody even suggest that? Here's what it comes down to at the end of the day, folks. Your history should matter. Your history should matter when it comes to telling the truth. And the fact of the matter is, Aaron Rodgers is an objectively proven liar. We can go over the list of just some of a few things that he said in the past. Some of these things not related to football, of course, and we'll start with those. That the COVID vaccine, agree or disagree with taking that or not, was, quote, experimental gene therapy that changes your DNA. That 9/11 was an inside job. That immigrants who joined the military could turn on America. That late night host Jimmy Kimmel should, quote, be nervous about the Epstein list. Now that we're away from the non-football stuff, let's go to the football stuff. He said a year ago he was 90% retired before he went to some weird dark hole. And by the way, he didn't even finish his entire scheduled time there, but goes in a weird dark hole and he's 90% retired. He comes out, not only am I not retired, I want to go to a new team and go win a Super Bowl for said team. That was a year and a half ago. Aaron Rodgers has not closed the door on coming back next year. So that will be 3 seasons past the claim that he made that he was 90% retired. So he obviously lied about that one. He said last year, still a member of the Green Bay Packers, that when Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of Green Bay, was trying to contact him, that, I guess my phone wasn't working, the service was kind of bad in Malibu, California. What is that, one of the richest neighborhoods? Isn't that like a who's who of celebrities live in Malibu? Yeah, I'm sure the Kardashians have some. I don't know if they live in Malibu, but that's just an example. I'm sure that all the A-list celebrities, the George Clooney's of the world and the Kardashians have some real trouble with Verizon. Come on now, Aaron obviously lied about that. This is my favorite. That any of the BS. Remember this? End of last season. Any of the BS that has nothing to do with football needs to get out of the building. Ironically speaking, Jets mandatory minicamp. Guess who's not in the building? Oh, it's one Aaron Rodgers who felt like a trip to Egypt was more important than building a rapport with receivers he's never gotten in-game experience with. And finally, the last lie that he told. Yeah, man, coach, this is offseason. Yeah, me and Robert Saleh had a great relationship. Call me crazy. If I had a great relationship with somebody and I did something great and my biggest cheerleader over the sideline is happy for me, and I go over to the sideline in the direction of that person and they go for a hug and I push them away and give them a very ominous look as I walk off. Brady and Belichick were buddies. I don't think that would have happened. Robert Saleh should have been fired by the Jets, I think, last year. If you're going to keep him this year, I think he should have at least lasted until December because, again, history shows you fire a coach at this point of the season, your season's a wrap. My man Mike Guido, shout out to Mike, Bi-Coastal Baseball Podcast. Last night in the 8 o'clock spot, he said, their season is officially over because this, and history would show, yeah, that's usually the case. Well, actually, it's almost always the case if a coach is fired after week 5. So Saleh was not a good coach. I want to be abundantly clear about that. Aaron Rodgers cannot lie to me and say he had nothing to do with this. I flat out do not believe him. If nothing else, by the way, let's just say, I think this is not in the slightest bit backed up by fact, but let's say Aaron had absolutely nothing to do with this, verbally speaking, about Saleh. He absolutely had something to do with Robert Saleh getting fired. You know how I know that? Because of this. The Jets are exactly the same this year as they were last year on offense. Points per game, the same. Yards per game, basically the same. Yards per play, basically the same. Turnovers, pretty much identical. This year's Jets team commits more penalties than last year's Jets offense through 5 games. Same record, 2-3. The whole premise of the Jets being good this season is, well, at least Aaron Rodgers is a heck of a lot better than Zach Wilson. It's the same offense. It's the same squad. They're not doing nothing. Not doing anything. Again, I refuse to believe that it is a coincidence that, according to Jonathan Jones of CBS, Saleh was thinking about firing Hackett. That day he's fired after Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't often talk on the phone to Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, the night before. The dots don't connect to Aaron having nothing to do with this. So he continues to be disingenuous, a flat-out liar on virtually everything, football or not. And it's one of the many reasons why the Jets are stuck in quicksand, as per usual. So I do not believe Aaron Rodgers at all. And on this week's edition of Carving Out the Context, listen, what evidence do we have to say? A, that Aaron had nothing to do with this, and B, that Aaron's even telling the truth about anything that he's saying. None. I do not believe this guy. He has no reason for me to give him that benefit of the doubt. I think it's just, I appreciate the support in the comments, Jeff. It's just, this guy is exhausting. Now, I mean, listen, for shows like mine, I'll be sad when Aaron retires because he gives me plenty of content. He gives me plenty of things to talk about, especially on Wednesdays after he's just been on McAfee's show. So, in that regard, I should probably be happy. It's a blessing, that he's been able to bestow upon me and any other content creator out there. But it is so freaking disingenuous, the things that comes out of this man's mouth. It's so ridiculous. If nothing else, his play had something to do with. Okay. If the Jets score more than 9 points as an 8.5-point favorite against Denver, and if Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6 in a 6-point loss to the Vikings, think Saleh still got a job? I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably he does. Saleh was not great. I want to be as clear as I can be about that. Rodgers had something to do with this, and he can't convince me otherwise. Anywho, let's transition to a team that actually wins and stuff. The goal in the NFL is to win with as few distractions as possible, and that's what the Kansas City Chiefs continue to do. They beat the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. They doubled them up 26-13 at home at Arrowhead Stadium, and I'm watching this game. I'm sitting there with my dad watching the game, and listen, the Chiefs were supposed to win. I picked them to win. I say most people picked them to win. They were 5.5-point favorites. That felt, but 5.5 sizable, but with Kansas City against a Saints team that's kind of reeling a little bit right now. Derek Carr, by the way, got hurt in this game. Kansas City was supposed to win, and they did. It's the way they did it, though. So Mahomes has the bad goal line interception where the brother of one of Taylor Swift's backup dancers, big giant defensive lineman, takes that football 30 yards. I mean, you want to talk about, it wasn't a thick 6. He didn't take it to the house, but it was a thick pick. No question about that. You have that play. You have the fact that there's no Isaiah Pacheco. There's no Hollywood Brown. There's no Rashee Rice. And the Chiefs are taking, again, and I remember talking about this after they won the Super Bowl against the 49ers, is that what made the run for Mahomes in particular so incredible last year in the playoffs, outside of Kelsey, who's fantastic, outside of Kelsey and a good Rashee Rice at that point, it was, in the words of the great Bill Parcells, a bunch of Jags out there. Just a guy. Jags. Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, he was doing it with guys out there against stacked Niners teams and Ravens teams and a Bills team that had it rolling and a loaded offensive Dolphins team. Mahomes didn't blink. 1 turnover the entire playoffs last year with guys on offense. And I'm watching this game, and Travis Kelce was great. The man, it continues to, listen, he'll give you one of these. He's getting up there in age, but he'll give you one of these, he only has 70 yards receiving where he's consistently separating, getting open. He had the nice little lateral when Kansas City had 4th and 1,000,000 that ended up leading to them getting a first down in the red zone. Juju Smith-Schuster, folks, had 260 yards in 11 games a year ago with the New England Patriots. 260 yards in 11 games. On Monday night, he had half of that alone. Juju Smith-Schuster, 7 catches for $130. By the way, Kansas City thought he was so important to their 2022 offense, they let his butt walk to the Patriots where he did nothing, and then they brought him back after he got cut by the Patriots. The worst, least talented offense in football. They said, yeah, you're not good enough to play for us. And he had 100 receiving yards the other night against the Saints. Okay, how about Kareem Hunt? Right, he was cut by the Chiefs in 2018 due to some off-the-field stuff. He goes to Cleveland, and he's fine at the start. He's okay, but kind of fades off at the end. The Browns actually cut him twice, or let him go twice. The Chiefs say, well, our backfield's kind of falling apart. Pacheco's hurt. Carson Steele is he's been dealing with injuries. We're going to bring him in, and, he leads us with rushing. He has 100 yards. And Mahomes' stat line this year, folks. How about this? How's 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, 16th in QBR work. And this season, Patrick Mahomes has a passer rating of 88. And they're 5-0. Now, a big reason they're 5-0, and this is big for Kansas City, is that if you look at the teams they played this year, which, by the way, I don't really believe in the Saints. I do believe, to varying degrees, in their first 4 opponents. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Atlanta, and the LA Chargers. Okay? The Ravens averaged 31 points per game. The Chiefs held them to 20. The Bengals averaged 28 points per game. The Chiefs held them to 25. The Falcons averaged 23 points per game. The Chiefs held them to 17. And the Chargers averaged 19 points per game. The Chiefs held them to 10. And as for the Saints, they averaged 31 points a game. And the Chiefs held them to 13 points. So this defense might, I actually thought the defense might take a slight step back because of the loss of L'Jarius Sneed. How many times have I called, nothing against him, but how many times have I called his name for the Tennessee Titans? I mean, listen, he's still a great corner, but they still got McDuffie. They still got Chris Jones, the best defensive tackle in football since Aaron Donald retired. They've still got Nick Bolton, who's a playmaking linebacker who will blow Ish up in the backfield. They've got good pass rushers. I mean, so Kansas City's defense, and we know how great the coordinator that Spags is, Steve Spagnuolo, with his blitz packages, as good as they come. I am watching this game, and I'm like, okay, they're 5-0 beating, in my opinion, I get Cincinnati's 1-4. I get it. I still think they can make a run because I believe in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But be that as it may, they beat, in my mind, 4 really, really high-end teams. And a Saints team that's, it's fine. Kansas City's going to get 1, maybe 2 receivers at the deadline. I don't think they're going to get Devontae Adams because even though the Raiders, I think the smart business for Vegas would be to trade Devontae Adams, fleece the Chiefs as much as you possibly can, get what you can from them, and actually maybe try and make them a little bit worse. I know it's a weird way of doing business, but it's not crazy. Devontae Adams might be off the table. Amari Cooper isn't. I think Amari Cooper might get dealt before the deadline for the Cleveland Browns. He doesn't seem to be thrilled with playing with Deshaun Watson, who would be. So Kansas City is going to upgrade their wide receiving core before it's all said and done. And I believe this is pure speculation. I think Hollywood's Browns going to be back for the playoffs. That they haven't ruled them out for the season. How many times do we see? I mean, we've seen guys who have been ruled out, and then at the last second in the biggest games, it teams like, oh, he's coming back. I think Hollywood Brown will be available for them whenever their first playoff game is, wild card round, divisional round, whatever the case may be. They're doing this with Mahomes playing very, very mediocre football. Pass rating of 88, middle of the NFL in QBR, 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, I called him Mahomes. I called him Mahomes before this game when I picked Kansas City. I said he has not had a game since 2022 of over 300 passing yards and 0 turnovers. Well, he had the 300 yards at the interception on the goal line. If this is what Kansas City's doing now, by the way, the schedule for them moving forward. So they got San Francisco coming up in a couple of weeks. That's going to be tough. We know that. But after that, Kansas City's schedule. They got the Raiders twice in the next 6 games. They got Denver, which I think they could actually lose to Denver because Denver's got a really good defense. I think they'll split with the Broncos this year. Tampa Bay can't stop anybody. Buffalo, Bills will probably win that because they always beat Kansas City in the regular season. But you got some Panthers. You got the Browns. This is the hardest part of the Chiefs' schedule. They're not even playing well offensively, and they're 5-0. That, to me, for the rest of the NFL is absolutely positively terrifying. that other teams have kind of had their ups, had their downs. I mean, the Texans are 4-1. They've had some bad offensive performances and some bad defensive performances. They finally put together a complete game against Buffalo on Sunday. The Bills have been reeling a little bit. The Ravens can't stop anybody. I mean, the top contenders in the AFC, none of them has. Houston has an argument that they're in the same ballpark as Kansas City. I would still take the Chiefs just on championship pedigree. Between those teams, they have the best defensive player in Chris Jones. Spags has proven himself in the playoffs time and time again, way before his time in Kansas City. Listen, they were supposed to beat the Saints, but the way they did it with Mahomes, again, Mahomes actually I thought played pretty well. He had a QBR of 70 on a 0 to 100, which is really good. But it's kind of like I talked about with Dak Prescott on Sunday. Like Dak had it jacked to work with basically all night against bad circumstances, as already is. The hour-and-a-half rain delay, great Steelers defense, Mike Tomlin at Pittsburgh, everything went against Dak, and he still won the game, which is why I was blown away by him. To a slightly lesser degree, because Mahomes obviously better than Dak. That's kind of how I felt about Patrick and the Chiefs as a collective yesterday or on Monday Night Football. So, watch out for this squad because it could get scary. Because if they add a guy like an Amari Cooper or somebody else at the deadline, sweet Lord of all that is good, it could be a problem for the rest of the AFC and therefore the NFL. Let's see. Jeff. Oh, I disagree, Jeff, and I'm a Steelers fan. But he says, Bryson, I don't think the best team is the same as the most terrifying team, though. When I think of a terrifying team, the first team that comes to my mind right now is your Steelers, not the Chiefs. Well, let me tell you, Jeff, as a Steelers fan firsthand, and listen, I think our defense will bounce back. I feel really good about our game on Sunday against the Raiders, especially with Aiden O'Connell of all people, at least if Justin Fields starts. But we don't even know who the starting quarterback is this week with the Steelers. Pittsburgh's defense is on a very similar level of Kansas City, I believe. I do. And I love Mike Tomlin. Top 5 coach in the league, no question about it. But George Pickens isn't even hardly running routes right now. The backfield is beat up. I'm not even freaking sure who the quarterback is right now for week 6. So to me, what terrifying means, Jeff, when both teams hit their absolute positive ceiling, there's not a universe where the Steelers are more scary than the Chiefs, and I say that as a Pittsburgh fan. Now, if we had a top of the line quarterback, if we had like a Stroud or a Burrow or guys like that, I'd feel a little bit differently. But it feels to me I want this on the record. This wasn't a segment for the show, but since Jeff brought up the Steelers, Tomlin, like buddy. Justin's your guy. Like, he's had a passer rating near 100. 8-2 total touchdown to total turnover ratio. Just wanted that on the record. I think the Steelers would be out of their freaking... Listen, Justin hasn't been crazy, and I was hard on him after Sunday Night Football. But he gave us a better chance to win than Russell did, or Russell does. I'm not high on the Russell Wilson getting an opportunity to start right now at all. Given how Justin's played better than I thought, and I think way better than any of us thought. Like, do not start Russell Wilson. I want to put that on the record. Now, the Steelers, by the way, our next 3 games. Pittsburgh Steelers next 3 games. Raiders, Jets, Giants. Giants are actually playing pretty good football, but the Raiders are a quarterback mess. You know what I think about the Jets, or know about the Jets. They're not a good football team. And that Jets game is at home. The Raiders game might as well be at home. That'll be a Steelers home game in Vegas. And against the Giants, that is a literal home game. Daniel Jones might struggle against this defense. If Fields plays poorly in those next 3, then I'm like, okay, you probably do have to go with Russ. If teams are starting to get tape on him and there starts to be some struggles there, okay. But let's see. Jeff, remember I said terrifying. The Steelers are the best defensive player I've seen in a long time, TJ Watt, that completely wrecks games and is scary with Cam Hayward, Highsmith, and Queen, hard-hitting linebackers. Peyton Wilson as well, by the way. Yeah, Peyton Wilson, the linebacker, who I think is really starting to come up. By the way, you forgot to mention Nick Herbig, who I think is doing a very, very admirable job in Alex Highsmith's absence. I get all of those things, but you're just talking about one side of the ball. And Kansas City could say, hey, we can match that with some of our playmakers. And offensively, in terms of the ceilings there, it's not close. And I think the Steelers are better this year offensively than last year. People are equating the two too much. This Steelers offense, to me, is better than a year ago. It cannot hit the ceilings that Kansas City can hit because Kansas City's got Patrick Mahomes. and he can lift any offense to high heights. All right, we'll be back in a minute with reaction to an NBA player survey, or NBA GM survey, rather, that I found some of the categories interesting. One I found just outright absurd. So we'll be back in a minute with Carving It Up Live's NBA GM survey reaction. So take a break. Stay with us right after this. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So I really wanted to touch on a recent survey. They do this every year around this time, a couple weeks before the NBA season starts, where they talk about, they give these different categories for GMs to vote on. And there's some interesting ones, like best point guard, Luka Doncic won, followed by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Steph Curry. Best defensive player, Wemby won that, which, I mean, I think Wemby should have been DPOY last year, certainly over Rudy Gobert. It should have been either Wemby or Anthony Davis. As I always say, Anthony Davis, Draymond Green have a combined 1 defensive player of the year. Rudy Gobert's 4. NBA media, you should be embarrassed of yourself. Game on the line, clutch shot taker. We'll get into that in just a second. But like best leader, Steph Curry won. I agree with that. Followed by LeBron. Agree with that. Who's tied with Jalen Brunson. Agree with that. Most versatile player, Giannis won, followed by LeBron. Best basketball IQ, I'd have had LeBron over Jokic, but I see why they voted Jokic. Most athletic, they gave to Ant Edwards. I would have put Giannis along with Ant. Which team's level of success is the toughest to predict? People said the Lakers. Generally agree. Which active player will make the best head coach? They said Chris Paul. I agree with that statement as well. Best head coach, 69% of GMs said Eric Spoelstra. I agree with that as well. You know, I'm a Steve Kerr guy. Love Steve Kerr with my Warriors. I think he's number 2. Spo's unbelievable. Spo's on a different level than everybody else. What he gets year after year out of some pretty mid rosters, the fact that he's gotten to 2 of the last 5 finals is unbelievable. Like, kudos to him. It's nothing against Jimmy Butler, who we all know is a great playoff performer, but a lot of that's coaching as well. The one I wanted to harp on, though, and the one I really did not get, is the guy that NBA GMs, via the survey, they're anonymous, obviously, the guy that GMs want taking the last shot in the game. Steph Curry won, followed by Kevin Durant and Luka Doncic. Now, all 3 of those guys are clutch. I think Steph and Luka I'd put over KD. KD's hit some big shots his career. First and foremost, I want to say this. I absolutely agree Steph should be number 1, and the numbers bear it out. We could show you the numbers right here. What he did last season in winning clutch play of the year. I mean, look at that. The YouTube audience, you're like, what the heck? There's a lot of firsts, so I'll read it off for those that are listening. First in clutch, well, I won't say first. I'll just say he's first in all these categories. Clutch points, clutch field goal makes, clutch three-point makes, clutch points per minute, clutch points when trailing, clutch field goal makes when trailing, clutch three-point makes when trailing, clutch three-point makes in a single season, go-ahead field goal makes in the final 2 minutes, go-ahead field goal makes in the final minute, go-ahead field goal makes in the final 30 seconds, go-ahead field goal makes in the final 10 seconds, and go-ahead field goal makes in the last 5 seconds. Steph Curry, number 1 in the NBA in every single one of those stats a season ago, in winning, obviously, as he should have, clutch player of the year. So, all right, literally, like down the list. If there's 30 seconds, he's the best. 10, he's the best. 5, he's the best. So, I agree. It's Steph, the narrative that's been going, and it's quieter than the one I'm about to bring up, that, Steph's not clutch. People cannot, for the life of them, let 2016 go. I get it. It was bad. I suffered through it as a Warriors fan, and Steph did not play well. That's an anomaly. Look at Steph's playoff resume, top to bottom. That's an anomaly. That is not the norm for Steph Curry. So GM's voting him number 1. Totally agree. I think Steph's the most clutch player in basketball. If you look at the list via NBA.com, in terms of how they felt about this about the guy they trust the most with the ball in their hands late to win the basketball game. Here's what I found fascinating. So it went with Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Luka Doncic, followed by Jokic, Dame, DeMar DeRozan, SGA, Kyrie Irving, Jamal Murray. That LeBron James did not get a single vote. Obviously, if this is polling all 30 GMs, Rob Pelinka did not vote LeBron James in this, which I find notable. Is an opinion that is, I've said this, oftentimes I use this very thing as at some point, facts got to come into the equation. I use this as the analogy that when folks say LeBron James is not clutch, you cannot make a single solitary argument that is a true statement. I think LeBron not being the top 3 in this, frankly, if you want to put Luka second, Luka's hit some big shots. So if it were me, I'd go Steph, Luka, LeBron today. LeBron James' first career in the clutch, he's pretty good. Let's show the numbers. LeBron James, 5 playoff buzzer beaters. That's first all time. 33.7 points per game in elimination games. That's most all time. He has 20, 30-point plus games when facing elimination. That is first all time. 40. This is amazing. 8 games of scoring 40 or more when facing elimination. That, my friends, is first all time. 5 triple doubles when facing elimination. That's first all time. He averages 35 a game in Game 7 with a minimum of 5 Game 7s. That is second all time to Kevin Durant. 6-0 in his last 6 Game 7s. And LeBron right there, you see that last stat. LeBron James, 7 game-winning or game-tying shots in the final 1 second of playoff games. No one else in the last 26 years has more than 2. LeBron has 7 game-tying or game-winning shots in the final second of a playoff game. This has often been, again, I remember talking about, as an example, I remember this summer, Gilbert Arenas on his podcast, going back to Steph, said Steph never gets quadruple team. And I literally showed picture after picture after picture after picture showing, yes, Steph absolutely has gotten quadruple team in his career. A lot of it came from one season back in 2021, but he's gotten it throughout his career because of how much attention he draws. And I remember saying on the show, at some point, you can have whatever opinion you want about something. At the very least, bring a few facts to back up your point. Facts that could be make the other side go, okay, that's something. I can't ignore that. I can't say that's ridiculous. That's not true. Listen, we can blame the guy who got fired by FS1. We can blame him. We can blame anybody you want in the national media that's put out this lie that LeBron James does not come up big, but is simply not founded in facts. Again, if nothing else, LeBron's the only player in the history of basketball to take not 1, not 2, but 3 teams and win an NBA championship. Heat, that's one thing. He won his first 2 titles in Miami. We know that with Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. Those teams were stacked. They were supposed to win. And by the way, Miami before LeBron, with LeBron, after LeBron, that's a winning basketball culture with Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. That's what they do. That they get the most out of what they have. So when they got the best player in the world, LeBron, and at the end of his prime, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, they're going to win. Him winning a title in Cleveland, first of all, it hadn't been done since Jim Brown. God rest in peace. God rest his soul. Jim Brown, rather. 1964. Cleveland was, and I don't care what anybody says, to this day, hey, Guardians, how about that? Let's go Tigers, up 2-1. That aside, the butt of a lot of sports jokes. Oh, they'd never come up clutch. They never come up big when you need them to. Kind of the butt of every sports jokes. We like to kick them around when we can. At least I do. Maybe I'm projecting. I don't know. LeBron not only won that team a title, but did so when he was down 3-1 to a 73-win Warriors team by scoring 41 in Game 5, 41 in Game 6, and a triple-double in Game 7, capped off by the greatest defensive player in the history of basketball, the block on Andre Iguodala. I get those aren't some of those stats aren't just relegated to just purely hitting clutch shots with the game on the line, but even those stats say, as we just showed you, oh yeah, LeBron is one of the best ever at it. Like there's some stats like field goal percentage in the final like 24 seconds, like he's just as good as guys like Kobe. And I mean, I think it's the stats. He's actually objectively better than Steph in hitting. I love Steph. He's the most clutch player in basketball today, in my estimation. But for the breadth of their careers, LeBron has been more clutch than Steph. And that's an uncomfortable conversation for me to have as a Warriors fan, but he has been. And so, like, respect to GMs. And again, a lot of these categories I agreed with. I didn't necessarily agree with basketball IQ. I'd have put LeBron over Jokic, but Jokic very much has a case to the best basketball IQ. I get it. It's year 22. LeBron's been in the league since before I was born. I'm 21 years old. I get that, but there's got to be a sense of, okay, even living now in the moment that we're in, until Steph, to me, reclaimed his spot as the best American player in the world, American basketball player, it was Steph was struggling. Some guys had up nights, some guys had down nights during the Olympics, and LeBron night after night after night, getting triple doubles, being active on the defensive end when he had to, hitting big shots. Remember, the exhibition game didn't mean much other than it guaranteed Team USA would not have a single blemish on their resume. Hit the game-winning layup against South Sudan. Like, I mean, this guy he's not as good as what he was in his peak. But I saw that poll. I'm like, Jamal Murray's hit big shots. Kudos to him. But Jamal Murray disappeared against the Timberwolves. Disappeared. He may own the Lakers, but he disappeared against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Who else was on the list? Shot with the game in the line. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, I cannot, and I love Shai. I'm a big SGA fan, and I really like Oklahoma City. Right now, they're my favorite to win the West this year. That said, I cannot remember one time in my life, and he's hit game-winning shots, but one where I was like that's the SGA moment, or one of the, like, that's going to go on the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander documentary 15 to 20 years from now, if there's a documentary about him. I mean, who else was on the list? Kyrie Irving, that's fair. LeBron has historically been more clutch than Kyrie, though. Same against Jokic. Dame is one of the clutchest players in history, so I'll give Dame that. I'll give Dame a little bit of pass there. DeMar DeRozan could have won Clutch Player of the Year last year, but just last year. It's somehow, some way, 22 years in, all-time leading scorer, four-time champion, four-time MVP. We can go over LeBron's, book of accomplishments. Somehow, some way, it's still, you know what he's not, though? He doesn't hit big shots. Okay. And the earth is flat. Okay, you knock yourself out, buddy. Knock yourself out. Jeff, you know what? I understand this. He says, the guy I want taking the last shot to win me a game is Luka. And, interesting. I don't even have to think about it. I mean, that's you, and I respect that. I would have to think about it, but at the same time, Luka's hit some unbelievable shots. We remember he won the one he hit against the Clippers in the bubble at the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, got the Mike Breen double bang. Yeah, the shot he hit. This was beautiful. When he crossed up Rudy Gobert that was wonderful for me to see as a Rudy Gobert truth teller. I won't say hater because I've told the truth on this guy from the jump. The game 2 of the conference finals, like, Luka's hit some unbelievable shots, so I don't even hate that. I'd still give the edge to Steph, but I get why you took Luka. And Bryson, Curry, you can't be serious. I want, I'll pull him down here. I want Iguodala. Got the Iguodala book. I haven't said, do we still have the Max Kellerman soundbite? By the way, I was thinking about today, where's Max Kellerman, man? Get that guy back on television. No, I used to play the Iguodala soundbite back in the day. It doesn't look like I've got it on here anymore, so that's unfortunate. If I knew you to say that, Jeff, I'd have brought it back out, but unfortunately, we do not. But yeah, I mean, hey, Iguodala's clutch too now. By the way, that was a good book, though. 6-man, really good book. But what I loved about the Kellerman thing, though, was, and obviously it's an absurd take, but what I loved about the thing was how much conviction he had when saying it. And he looks dead in the camera. I want Iguodala. It was... And what made it so much better is Iguodala goes on First Take like 2 weeks after the finals. They play the soundbite. Iguodala is in studio with Max Kellerman, and Molly Karam's like, well, what do you think? And Iguodala's like, he's crazy. Like, what is this guy? He's like dissing himself in front of Max Kellerman. Like, I love how it's taken on a life of its own. I mean, it's been like 5 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but. Oh, that was a classic moment right there. Shout out Max Kellerman once again, one of the best in the business. Hope to see him back on television or on a podcast, something someday. I'd pull him for that guy because he's really, really talented. All right. So we do this every Wednesday. Normally after carving up the context, but we led the show with that because I was so fired up wanting to talk about this whole Aaron Rodgers gaslighting extravaganza on the Pat McAfee show. That'll be on YouTube. We'll clip it up. What I wanted to get to, though, what we always get to on a Wednesday, is Bryson's Best 10, where I rank my top 10 teams in the National Football League going into Week 6. It's not just based off Week 5. It's based on your whole body of work, as well as potential future projections as well for this team. But we can only go off what we've seen and what we could continue to potentially see for these teams. So let's get the background music going on right now. Here we go. All right, we are going to start, of course, at number 10, the 10th best team in the National Football League, falling, I believe, 5 spots. Yes, 5 spots from last week. It is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So there are some folks that I've seen when they've done their top 10 list that have the Bills completely out of it, and I get that because the argument you can make is, hey, they beat the Cardinals, who, Arizona's not a bad football team, but they beat the Cardinals at home. Very could easily lost had there been a PI call at the end. Okay, you have that. You have the fact that they beat up a Dolphins team that has not been very good this year. That was the game that Tua got hurt. And then in Week 3, they smoked a Jaguars team that at the time was winless, just got their first win on Sunday. And their last 2 losses were a blowout loss to Baltimore and a game against the Houston Texans where Josh Allen completed 30% of his throws. I get that. My case for Purdue Buffalo, continue to have Buffalo in the top 10, is this is kind of what they do every year. Where they start the season, hair on fire. You got some idiotic takes out there like Josh Allen is 1A to Patrick Mahomes, or even Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes. Those are crazy, and it happens every single season without fail. And then they predictably come back down a little bit. But what they also do is they come back up. Josh Allen does his thing. Josh Allen still has not thrown an interception this year, which is pretty shocking, but he hasn't. Okay, I believe in James Cook. Allen's not going to complete 30% of his passes the rest of the season. Buffalo's defense is going to get healthier as time progresses. Keon Coleman gets better and better week after week. I still think this team is going to cruise. This isn't saying much, but cruise the AFC East title, and that's why I have the Buffalo Bills as the 10th best team in pro football. At number 9, back on Bryce's Best 10 after a brief absence. At number 9, it is the Atlanta Falcons. Rise up. The Falcons are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. I thought that was as impressive of a win on Thursday Night Football that they got the other night, a week ago against the Buccaneers is why I saw. So Tampa Bay does virtually whatever they want offensively, and that's an indictment of Atlanta's defense. Need to see more from the guys that they acquired, like Justin Simmons, like Matthew Judon and company. Kirk Cousins, 500 yards passing. Kirk Cousins, game-time drive at the end in regulation, including a perfectly executed 12-second play right to where they clock the ball, and then the kicker, Young Hoku, hits the tying field goal. Then Kirk Cousins leads a game-winning drive. Kyle Pitts has gotten slowly but surely more involved. I still, for the life of me, don't understand why Bijan Robinson is not getting the football. Clearly, it wasn't just an Arthur Smith problem. I don't know if it's an Arthur Blank problem. The Falcons owner, get that man the football. And I'm not just saying that for fantasy owners across this country, but they have a great running game, an amazing O-line. Kirk's been balling. All 3 of Atlanta's wins have come via a Kirk Cousins game-winning drive. He's been excellent this season. I would go so far as to say dark horse MVP candidate. Really like where Atlanta's going. Explosive offensive team, about what I thought they'd be. Need to see a little bit more from their defense, though. The Falcons are the 9th best team in the National Football League. At number 8, and making their first ever, not just this year, ever appearance on Bryce's Best 10, welcome to the list, Washington Commanders. Yes, the Commanders are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So as we see here today, Jaden Daniels leading, no, I don't think there's any question, leading the Offensive Rookie of the Year chase. Now, Caleb Williams, slowly but surely, gets better and better week after week. I actually thought about putting the Bears in the top 10. I decided to keep the Bills in out of respect for them and what they've showed us they're capable of doing. As for the Commanders, number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, averaging about 31 points per game. The problem with them, and I would have had them higher with a 4-1 record, with an outstanding offense, if not for their absolutely putrid defense. Now, they haven't been tested in the last few weeks, obviously on Sunday facing freaking Deshaun Watson, who's at this point a backup QB in the NFL. The Browns aren't paying him as such, of course. But Terry McLaurin's been doing his thing. The running game's been excellent. The offensive line has been teetering, but I thought played okay against Cleveland in that game. But even if they don't, Jaden Daniels can get out to the pocket, make plays. Cliff Kingsbury has been a godsend for that Dan Quinn-led coaching staff. Will Cliff Kingsbury fade as time goes on? Maybe, as history shows you that he does. But he's been a great OC for this team thus far. I was a big Jaden Daniels fan coming into the draft. I've been validated in what he's shown thus far. I didn't think he'd be this good. He's completing like almost 80% of his throws through the first 5 weeks of the season. Washington's a great offense. It's an offensive, particularly a quarterback's league, as I've said for 3 years. The Commanders are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7 and moving up, moving up 3 spots from a week ago, it is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So Jordan Love, by the way, first win of the season for him. Kudos to him. He threw a Will Levis-like interception against the Rams in his own end zone. I don't know what the heck was going through his mind. Here's what I'm impressed with Green Bay, though, right? Xavier McKinney. My sister, who's a Packers fan, is like, get me a Xavier McKinney jersey. 5 picks in 5 games. You look at offensively for the Packers. So they have the Romeo Doubs drama. That's not great. Christian Watson's been dealing with injuries. They've still got Dontavian Wicks, and they got this kid, Tucker Kraft, not 1 but 2 touchdowns on Sunday against the Rams, including a long one, 60-plus yarder from Jordan Love, who's looking to kind of get back, coming back into his own, save for the god-awful interception in his own end zone. I love the Packers' running game. I trust their offensive line. That's what they've always done, is have great quarterbacks and great O-lines. Green Bay is going to be a problem throughout the entire season. The fact that they won the 2 games with Malik Willis blew me away. It was a testament to how great of a coach that Matt LaFleur is. So Green Bay Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League. Staying right where they were a week ago because they didn't play was the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So know what you're saying. Bryson, hate to tell you, but they're averaging 19 points per game. Here's what I would say to that. Number 1, Jim Harbaugh wants to run the football. This is not going to be an offense that's going to score 25 to 26, 27 points per game. That's not going to be what their identity is because they simply don't have the playmakers on the outside. But Jim Harbaugh knows we're going to run the football. We have a great offensive line with the 2 best tackles in the NFL. By the way, coming off a bye, should get some of their guys, particularly Joey Bosa on the defensive end, back from injury, as well as Derwin James from the suspension. The fact that I was actually quite impressed. I get it's a divisional opponent, and so those games tend to be close. I was impressed by the fact that the Chargers were missing all those guys and pushed Kansas City to the wire. If not for a Chris Jones play at the end. So kudos to LA. They're well coached. They've got a great quarterback. They've got an amazing run game. J.K. Dobbins. Getting all their healthy guys back this week. I think the Chargers are, I still am holding to my pick integrity of them getting to the AFC title game. The Chargers are the 6th best team in the National Football League. Despite their win, falling a spot, and I'll explain why, because of the team that jumped them. At number 5, it is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Lamar Jackson has been insane. 5 touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals. Derrick Henry has the potential, given what his numbers show, to go for is on pace for a 2,000-yard, 20-touchdown season. Like, we're talking about, we did a special, or a segment on the 8 o'clock spot last night. Who's the MVP of the league? And my man Mike Guido said, Derrick Henry's been unbelievable. And you can make that case that he's the MVP, especially in large part because in that unbelievable quarterback duel between Burrow, between Lamar Jackson, it was Derrick Henry who made the closing play at the end in overtime after the Evan McPherson missed field goal for Cincinnati. Taking the ball down for long ways out inside the 5-yard line. Justin Tucker walks it off. My only concern, the reason this Ravens team dropped in favor of a team that I'll mention in just a second, is Baltimore's pass defense is not good. Like, it is not good. Now, I get they play great quarterbacks. They played Dak Prescott. They played Joe Burrow. They played Mahomes. I get that. But I have not liked what I've seen from the secondary at all. The Ravens' identity, their entire franchise's history, has been defense. Can they turn that around? We'll see. I got to see a lot more for me to put the Ravens in that upper tier of teams, like the top 3, like some folks are putting them in. Impressive 3-game winning streak, an impressive offensive performance by them, but I need to see a lot more from them defensively to elevate them a couple of tiers higher. The Ravens are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, it is the Houston Texans. The Texans are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. By the way, up 3 spots from last week. What have I said on Bryson's Best 10 since after that Week 1 game where they beat the Colts? Is I see the talent. Every Sunday, I see it. I see the great coaching. D'Amico Ryans running the defense. Bobby Slovic running the offense. C.J. Stroud doing his thing. I see it. But can I see it as, sorry to sound like a coach doing coach speech during a press conference, but complimentary football? Oh, I saw it against the Buffalo Bills. Yes, I get the Buffalo broke off a couple of big plays with Keon Coleman and company, but 9 for 30 Josh Allen. Some of that's Josh Allen and his inefficiency, which he is prone to do on occasion. Some of that was Buffalo's pass defense, and their pass rush were absolutely outstanding across the board. Their defensive numbers, if you look at them, top 5 in just about every category that matters. Offensively, they lost Nico Collins. They put him on IR, so that's a big, big loss. But you still have Stephon Diggs. You still have Tank Dell. You still have Dalton Schultz. You still have Joe Mixon hopefully coming back sooner rather than later from injury. I really like Houston's offensive line. Coach, I mean, again, as I've said all season long, there's not really anything I don't like about the Texans other than they're young. They're a young football team. Is this something that they can be able to bring into the postseason and knock out a Kansas City or a Baltimore or an upper tier contender like that? The Houston Texans, very, very impressed. Their best game they played by far this season. Houston Texans are the 4th best team in the National Football League. Staying where they're at last week at number 3, the 3rd best team in the National Football League is the Minnesota Vikings. Skull out there in Minneapolis. The Vikings are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Only team in the NFL this year that's top 6 in terms of points per game and points allowed per game, scoring offense and scoring defense. That is what the Minnesota Vikings are doing. Justin Jefferson, we know what he brings to the table offensively. Now, they did lose Aaron Jones. We'll see how long he's out. It's reported that's a week-to-week type of situation in regard to his injury. But this Vikings offensive line, really talented, really good. Minnesota's defense is ridiculous. They had the pick 6. Alex Van Ginkel, I think it was Alex Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel was his last name. The pick 6. I was watching him run down the sideline with those golden locks. He looked like a Minnesota Viking. This Minnesota secondary, led by Stephon Gilmore, Harrison Smith, are excellent. Linebackers are excellent. Brian Flores and we talk about great duos with D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slovic. How about Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, who are doing Flores might be the assistant coach of the year. O'Connell might be the coach of the year thus far through 5 games. I would elevate them a tier higher or a spot higher. I really, really would. But you started to see the cracks in the Sam Darnold armor. Now, he's with a smart coach. He's with weapons. I don't expect Sam Darnold to look like the Jets Sam Darnold, but that guy is still in there. You saw him throw that terrible interception in the second half to help the Jets get back in this football game, and it looked like Minnesota was going to blow him out. I don't, in the long run, trust their quarterback play, but within the offense, he can be productive. They have a great defense. The Vikings are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. This team had a bye this past week, but you know I love them. They've been in this spot from the start of the season. Given how they play, why the heck would I move them? At number 2, it is the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. Last time they played, Jared Goff didn't throw an incompletion. He had more touchdown catches as a quarterback than incompletions. Jared Goff, in his last 2 first halves, has not thrown an incomplete pass. What does that tell you? A, the Detroit offensive line, best in football, is balling out. It tells you Jared Goff's been accurate, but it also tells you Ben Johnson, who had a rough first few weeks of the season, play calling was suspect at times. This is a guy who is really smart, is going to be a head coach this upcoming season. Any competent coach, what is your first 15 plays? Well, how about we go on beyond the first 15 plays? How about we go first halves, and Jared Goff's been perfect. Jahmyr Gibbs is lightning. David Montgomery is thunder. They have, obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, underrated receiver. Jamison Williams, who I said would be the X factor for this Lions offense to somehow elevate above how great it was a year ago. You've seen it against the Rams, against the Seahawks in Monday Night Football. These bomb plays, he is able to, again, kind of like their Xavier Worthy is for the Chiefs, able to stretch the defense, create big plays. This guy's really special. First time in his career he hasn't been suspended or injured. I get it. I don't trust the Lions defense really as much as anybody trusts them. But Aiden Hutchinson is still great. I trust him situationally to make big plays. Dan Campbell has this team, for his fault situationally, Dan Campbell, he has a team ready to play each and every week. I love Detroit. I've still got them going to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. The Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League. And at number 1, again, as they've been from the start of the season, why the heck, given how they play, would I move them? It is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So you heard me talk about them earlier in the show in their win against the Saints, is the fact that they're taking rejects like Juju Smith-Schuster, like Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, 100 rushing yards. Juju Smith-Schuster had half the receiving yards in this game alone as he had all last season in 11 games with the New England Patriots, who had the worst receiving core in football and actually felt he wasn't good enough to make their squad. Mahomes, Andy Reid say, hey, come on back and we'll give you another 100-yard receiving game. Patrick Mahomes, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, not even playing great football. And they're 5-0 in large part because their defense has been absolutely dominant, on average holding teams to about 10 less. You realize how many points 10 points in the NFL is? About 10 points less than what their average points per game total is against good teams too, or at least good offenses. Cincinnati, Baltimore, the Falcons, the Chargers, the Saints have been productive offensively this year. It's a great defense. They haven't lost a game since Christmas. They have not lost a game since Christmas of last year. I'm supposed to move them? Oh, what are we talking about here? Let's not entertain that foolishness. The Kansas City Chiefs, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, who again have not lost since Christmas, are the best team in the National Football League. There you go. So for its comments, go ahead and put up the entire list up here. So there you go. So from 10 on up, I've got the Bills, Falcons, Commanders, Packers, Chargers, and in the top 5, I've got the Baltimore Ravens, Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and on top, of course, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's see. Listen, you're not in the minority on this, Jeff. He says, Bryson, the Lions aren't even the best team in their own division. So I just flat out think they're better than Minnesota. Minnesota's got a much better defense. I get that. I think the quarterback gap, I'm sorry. I have seen Jared Goff, with great coaching to his credit, and by the way, we do have to take that into account. Like when Jared Goff's got great coaching, great O-line, he looks like Tom Brady. And when he doesn't, he's an absolute mess. I get that. I've seen a longer stretch of great football with great coaching with Jared Goff, and you saw the signs with Darnold. Like that pick in the second half, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Don't make mistakes. You'll beat a Jets team that will beat themselves up. It's what I've given the Chiefs credit for, by the way, is the fact that that Patrick Mahomes has been making these mistakes, or in the playoffs, at least last year, did make mistakes, didn't take big shots down the field. And they still find a way to win games because they just wait for the other team to beat themselves. Minnesota can win that way if their quarterback will let them. That's what I worry about. Not saying the Vikings are, I have the Vikings at number 3. I'm not disrespecting the team like crazy like that. And Jeff said QB, Darnold is more talented than Goff. He is more talented than Goff in terms of arm talent. He can move better than Jared Goff can, but Goff is more steady. He's certainly a more accurate quarterback throughout the entire course of his career than Darnold is. Listen, Goff is, I've called him many times, Kirk Cousins, like they're the last of a dying breed. Like guys that really can't move outside the pocket and make plays really whatsoever, which is why they need great offensive lines, which the Falcons and Detroit, kudos to those organizations for recognizing that limitation in their franchise quarterback. They do have great O-lines. The game has changed, and there you go. Come on. See, we got haters in the comments. Come on. I think Denver's good. I like Bo Nix. I like Sean Payton. Hey, got to do more to earn your spot on Bryce's best 10. If you win this week, if the Broncos play this week, I don't know if they're on a bye, but there you go. All right, I'll be back in a minute from the next break. Quick predictions for the WNBA Finals and predictions for San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. That's a great matchup. Again, kudos to Amazon. Last year, the games were unwatchable. What we got last week with the Bucks and the Falcons, I don't know if tomorrow will top that, but I think it's got a chance to be really, really entertaining. So be back in a break. Predictions for the WNBA Finals, as well as predictions for the 49ers and the Seahawks. Be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Before we get to finals predictions of the WNBA, just check around Major League Baseball. The Tigers, and I did bring this up earlier, beat the Guardians 3-0. Again, folks that saw the show on Friday know that my bold predictions for this division series in both the AL and NL was that no division winners would get to the LCS. Thus far, Mets are up 2-1 in the series. I want to clarify, 2-1 the series over the Phillies, but the Phillies right now, top of the 6, up 1-0 over the Mets in Queens. Listen, I've got people close to me in my life, Alfred Parso Jr., Barry Grant Jr., shout out to those guys who are, diehard Mets fans. And so I know they're nervous as heck. Listen, I'm pulling for the Mets like crazy. I'm a Red Sox fan, Mets fans. We both hate the Yankees, so there's like an allyship there. So pulling for the Mets, but the Phillies up 1-0 in the 6th could force a game 5. It's at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, so that could be exciting. But I think I have Mets in 5 in that series. By the way, you got Yankees Royals. The Yankees may lose tonight. I think they're going to lose tonight. But you know what they did in Game 2?
Yankees lose.
The downside of the Yankees, and I do think they're going to go down the series to Kansas City because, again, no division winners win. The downside of them losing that series is I won't get to play that soundbite until April. So that's unfortunate, at least April. But the Yankees-Royals actually is beginning right now. And then Dodgers-Padres, first pitch is in a couple of hours. Padres won Game 3 in what was a crazy start to the game. Yeah, Tatis going berserk, and he's been insane throughout the playoffs. Then he got Teoscar Hernandez with a grand slam to get the Dodgers back in it. Padres end up hanging on for the 6-5 win. It could be, and I picked the Padres to win. I think they're a better team top to bottom, certainly in terms of their pitching staff over the Dodgers. It will be a shame to see Ohtani in his playoff debut go out in the division series. But I think, and I love Dave Roberts as a Red Sox fan, Red Sox legend. That Netflix documentary, I'm excited to watch that in a couple weeks about the Red Sox. That said, Dave Roberts needs to go in LA. This will be... Yeah, I've likened the Dodgers to a lesser sense because it's a team compared to a player, different sports. I get it. But I've compared the Dodgers to Aaron Rodgers in the sense. Now, the difference is the Dodgers are actually good and get to the playoffs and stuff. But I've said, like, Aaron Rodgers hasn't won a playoff game in 4 years, hasn't been a legitimately good quarterback, or at least elite quarterback, in 3 years. No 300-yard passing games since Week 14, 2021. Folks, the Dodgers have not won a playoff series since that year, 2021. That's with that talent, that's unacceptable. Now, again, pitching staff beat up this year, I understand it, and I didn't expect the Dodgers to win the World Series this season. That can't happen. That can't happen. I move on from Dave Roberts if it were me. I don't like some of his in-game management. So there you go. All right, let's shift. WNBA final. Do we have the intense background music because it's the finals for crying out loud? Let's act like it means something because it does. All right. WNBA finals. Listen, I think throughout the season we were hoping for a WNBA finals rematch between the Liberty, the New York Liberty, who are in the finals this year, and the Las Vegas Aces, back-to-back WNBA champs. But we did get that rematch in the semifinal series where the Liberty were able to take down Vegas in 4 games. Listen, New York Liberty, 32-8. They've been the best team in the WNBA all season long. Brianna Stewart's been, Brianna Stewart. She's played it up to an MVP form. Obviously came up short to that award to Asia Wilson, best player in the WNBA. Sabrina Ionescu, I've been a fan of hers on this show for many, many years, since her days at Oregon. Second best shooter, in my opinion, distant shooter, to obviously Caitlin Clark. We know the depth that this New York Liberty team has. They're very, very well coached, but don't sleep on this Minnesota Lynx team, folks. They were number 2. These are... if we're talking about the 40 games of the WNBA regular season, these have been the 2 best teams. Liberty 1, Lynx 2. And Fessa Collier has been unbelievable throughout the playoffs. Had 2 40-point playoff games to start this playoffs. These are 2 well-coached teams, great depth, but there's something to be said about revenge. And when you take out the team that broke your hearts a year ago, where you came up short a season ago to this team, all the moves that they drafting Sabrina Ionescu in 2020, getting Brianna Stewart soon after that in free agency. I love everything this Liberty team is about. I'm going to take them to win the series in a best of 5 in 4 games. Liberty win the series. They win the WNBA championship. And kudos to the Minnesota Lynx. Listen, probably my favorite WNBA player of all time is Maya Moore, who I don't care that she didn't play that long. What she did I'm just saying it right now. I think Maya Moore is the greatest female basketball player ever. You can Cheryl Miller, because Cheryl Miller didn't get a chance to play in the WNBA. Cheryl Miller, we talk about players like that. A lot of different women that have trailblazed and set the path for many of the players we see today in this league. Maya Moore was insane. I mean, she could get any shot she wanted anywhere on the floor. Excellent defensive player. Loved Maya Moore. And love her more as a person, given what she's done off the court. She's a plus human being, A plus basketball player. So just want to pay tribute to Maya Moore. So if the Lynx win, I'll be happy for her and the organization she played for. But listen, I'm a Sabrina fan, so I'm going to go with the Liberty to win this series in 4 games. So there you go. But before we get out of here, we have a football game to predict, and what was sure to be a pretty tight, crazy, intense divisional matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Both of these teams coming off of a loss in Week 5. Seattle coming off 2 straight losses to the Detroit Lions. I expect them to lose to Detroit, and to the Giants, which, I mean, I also expect them to lose to the Giants because that was my upset of the week. But Geno Smith, the last couple of weeks, he was amazing against Detroit. Struggled a little bit against the Giants defense. Is actually, quietly quite good. For the 49ers, they're 2-3. I don't think any of us thought they'd be at 2-3 at this point in the season. Christian McCaffrey obviously still going to be out for an extended period of time. Here's what we know about these Thursday night games is that they tend to favor the better coach. Right? I mean, that's why the Giants play the Cowboys so close, because I like McCarthy. I like him as an average coach in the league. Dable's a better coach all day, every day. These short weeks, by the way, inexperienced coaches like a Draw Mayo. Robert Saleh literally just got fired the other day and had a better coaching day than Draw Mayo on that Thursday night game in Week 3. So short weeks always tend to favor the better coaches, and we know Kyle Shanahan is a better coach, certainly at least a better head coach than Mike McDonald, who just got there. Here's the thing with Brock Purdy that I think is interesting, okay? I checked this to make sure I got it right. Brock Purdy in his career, undefeated against the Seattle Seahawks, including a playoff win. And he's been really good in the games in Seattle. They won a game there on Thursday night 2 years ago. They also won another Thursday night game on Thanksgiving last year where Purdy played well in that matchup as well. But in the one game Brock Purdy played against a Mike McDonald defense, when he was the defensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens, Brock Purdy had 4 turnovers and played probably the worst game of his career. And so it's like he's been successful against the team. It's a short week, but he's not very good against this defensive coach. Here's why I know. If Daniel Jones, who's been actually okay this season, if Daniel Jones and the running game for the Giants could carve up the Seattle Seahawks defense, which was hailed by all, it's like, oh, it's the best defensive league with the Steelers and Chiefs. I'm like, they haven't played anybody, folks. They haven't played any good quarterbacks. The Niners should have their way with them. I think it'll be close because it is a divisional game. I will take it. I saw the line. I'm like, is it? I was a little scared it could be like 4.5. Right now it's 3.5. I would take the Niners to cover that. Give me San Francisco 26-20 over the Seattle Seahawks. They do cover the 3.5 point spread. Get everything back on track. They get to 2-3. San Francisco over Seattle 26-20. Listen, I remember picking Seattle's regular season when I was going over my predictions for all the teams. Is I thought they'd get it going early because they were playing bad quarterbacks. But once they got to this kind of meaty part of their schedule, I mean, who's Seattle got next up for San Francisco? Because obviously they had Detroit on the Monday night, which I thought they'd lose. They got Atlanta. They got Buffalo. I think the Rams, once they get healthy, will get back on track. Then they got San Francisco again. The Cardinals can play at the Jets. Then they got the Cardinals again, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. Like Seattle's closing schedule from here on out is it's brutal. So they needed to win that game against the Giants badly, but this game should decide a supremacy in the NFC West, unless that is the Cardinals. I think if the Cardinals win, who do the Cardinals play this week? The Pack. That's an interesting game. Green Bay's favored by 5 in that game. I'll predict that obviously on Friday with the rest of them. That is a sneaky fun game in that early 1 o'clock Eastern window. I'm going to have to lock into that. My Steelers don't play till 4, so I can really kind of lock into this game. That's Bucks, Saints. There's some solid Week 6 games this week. Commanders, Ravens, Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. Man, by the way, my 2 guys, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence in London. Man, can't wait to get to that and predict those games. By the way, Jeff says, Bryson, just to let you know, the Hawks are missing Murphy and Reek Woolen. And he said, He said Mustafa, our safety, is going to have a good game, and our defense as a whole will look better. And he says LFG because he's a Niners fan, so he's excited we picked him. Yes, I'll tell you what. He said this is always the uniform game of the year. We are wearing our white throwbacks, which are very nice. I do agree. As well as much as I hate the Seahawks, they're wearing their new throwbacks, which are fire. I'll tell you this, and then we'll get out of here. My hot take on the Seattle Seahawks uniform-wise, because they've always been lauded as like, oh, they got some of the best uniforms in the league. And I agree, generally. I think their lime green uniforms are terrible. I hate those uniforms passionately. They're it's like watching highlighters play football on the field. I don't like any of them. That said, to your point, Jeff, those blue Kingdome-looking Seahawks throwbacks, like reminds you of Steve Largett back in the day. Those fire. Like those are nice uniforms. So, and I love that the NFL a couple of years ago, let teams go back to their throwback uniforms. Kudos to them for that. Seattle's got some of the best throwbacks in the league. They really do. They really, really do. So there you go. All right. That is all the time for today's show. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Very important message. That show will not be live, but I'll pre-tape it, react to Thursday Night Football, anything else going on in football, maybe some playoff baseball reaction, crossing fingers for the Mets to win that game 4 tonight against the Phillies. Last I checked, they're down 1-0, so we'll see how that ends up. But playoff baseball, reaction to Thursday Night Football, and of course, why I love Friday shows so much, predictions for all of Friday's matchups, including my upset of the week, which the Giants have come through me twice on. If I were a bet man, which I'll do those 3 games, obviously, a little bit of a comeback week, be able to dig myself out of the hole that I've dug for myself, and of course, Bryson's League Bet. So tune in for that. It won't be live, but the show will be on 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time on YouTube and on Facebook. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Our next benchmark goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers. So if you have subscribed, please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about the show, except for your sleeping cat. Nealon, you gotta chill, buddy. Okay, you gotta chill. That's all I want to say. I love Nealon. You gotta relax a little bit. If you have not subscribed to the show, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you are part of the Carving It Up family. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network. Please go check out my man Patrick Brown, who writes some great pieces for the Grid Network's website. Again, should be some coming out very soon, given obviously we're coming off a big time crazy weekend in sports in Week 5 in the NFL, college football upsets. By the way, on Friday too, Volview, Tennessee, Florida. Oh, let's go. I am fired up for that. I hate Florida. You'll hear my takes on that on Friday. So again, the show won't be live, but the show will air at 6 p.m. Eastern. So please stay tuned for that. All right. I'll see y'all then. Please stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us on a day-to-day basis. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of detailed, nuanced solutions to solve it. And again, this being an election year, it's in 4 weeks, y'all. You got to get out there and vote. Okay, vote whatever your conscience tells you. If anybody doesn't show any sort of sense of urgency, any candidate shows no sense of urgency to address this problem, vote their butt out or vote against them, because we have to get this solved as soon as possible to protect the people of this beautiful country. I'll see you on Friday. Won't be live, but I'll see you then. Niners Seahawks reaction, baseball playoffs, Volview, Tennessee, Florida. Are you kidding me? Maybe the biggest weekend in college football all season long. I'll probably touch on all those games. Cannot wait. Stay safe out there, y'all. God bless y'all. Peace out. Can't fool me, Aaron. Come on, man. Get out of here. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.